Thank you guys for joining us on the Skunk Fam podcast. I think a lot of you are familiar with Pietri, obviously. We've done quite a number of episodes now. Um, Continuing on the theme of discussing genetics and the sources of those genetics and how certain medicinal varieties have been destroyed. And, we've got a lot of mids being pushed by certain people. So that's something we want to discuss today. How you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good, doing good. It's a nice day. The weather's really changed here in Oklahoma. It's beautiful. Everything's turning green. It rained a little bit too. So yeah, yesterday I went to a crawfish party from some local growers here where I live, and it was a big party. There was about 200 people. The music was fantastic. All you could eat crawfish and beer and stuff. Really nice people, really good smoke, everything homegrown, everything local. And the music was just incredible, incredible. Professional, musicians came and played. I was unbelievable. But I was at a farm where they were a hash making farm, and so I went there and I heard their process, and they had these expensive freezing machines that would freeze and tumble the product, and they would collect the resin, the liquid and resin and oils that were collected in the method, but then they would run them through bags, right, which lost 30% off the get, and then they would press, and then they would make it into temple balls and stuff and sell it on the market. That's not hash. They were totally taught wrong. They're making hashish and calling it hashish and calling themselves hashish makers, and they have no clue how to make hash. And how I know that about Frenchie Cannoli came out here and just ripped everybody off. Didn't tell you the right information. Sold a bunch of expensive equipment that doesn't do better than my coffee filter. Okay, and so he sold this method, but he didn't speak about true Afghan method or true Lebanese method. And the reason being is that he never learned there. He learned how to hand rub in the Himalayas, and basically he just sold bags. He sold nylon at wedding dress prices. In Afghanistan, you could have it. You could collect. They would collect the resin by sieving, and then they would keep the resin in a ball sack of a goat, a dried ball sack, and they would take the resin out of there, and they would hand press it until they had a gummy piece by hand, and then they would put it on the hubbly bubbly and smoke it. Most foreigners who took one hit of that stuff was out for the count. I mean, it was great hash. Only meant to be spoken like sipping fine wine. Another way to press it would be to take the resin and put it in plastic and just beat it with a mallet, with a broad wooden mallet, and just beat it and release the oils in the resin, put it in a press, roll it, and press it, right? So that's called a bat press. The famous technique that people would use they would buy the resin and they would bat press it and build it into whatever they wanted to ship it out, suitcases or hiding it, whatever method they used, right? Because they took the resin down, and made 100-gram piece of resin of resin might only give you a 15% gram of piece of hash once you're beating it down and release the oils. You know what I mean? So that press was a way for people to press it quickly and not have to wait for 100 Afghans to press your 100 kilos 3 months to hand press. You know what I mean? So the way to create a hand press technique in bulk was the bat press. And in the 70s, a friend of mine, Rod Fry, taught the Nepalis how to bat press hash. And so when you go to Nepal now, you'll find that bat press style. It'll be solid, like bricks, solid bricks of hash. It's all consistent. It's all beautiful, and it's the strongest hash and the best hash that you can buy in Nepal. Even better than the hand rub because it's cleaner and it's more aged more. When you're smoking some of that resin that you hand rub off the plants, it's really harsh, really, really harsh. Even at that point, you need to let it sit for a little bit before you can break it down and smoke it because it's just too harsh on your throat. But when we're talking about genetics, I listen to some of these podcasts of Godry, Kevin Godry, and this one and that one and this one and that one. But let's talk about Shanti Baba and Mr. Nice Seeds. When I didn't eat the Dutch chocolate. I only ate chicken mole, and I don't want to go to Jamaica and smoke a Dutch treat. You know what I mean? So I've been against the Dutch scene from day one, but for 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when all the feds and the CIA, when I exposed them, started calling me CIA and the FBI and all this stuff, Shanti Baba and Mr. Nice came out and said, oh, there goes Crackpot Joe making another statement and doing another thing. By the way, Crackpot Joe turned out to be the only one that fucking had any integrity and had any scruples that grew up with marijuana. And so, Shanti Baba was better than other seed banks. But you know what? In the end, he ate that Dutch chocolate and eats it every day. You know what I mean? And he went along with the fraud. So when he comes out and tries to be like Mr. Clean Jeans or that he knows about genetics, it's a goof because all he ever got were American genetics. Brett Hogue brought back all the California clones of all the top California strains directly to Arjan at the greenhouse. So that's why how all that stuff came over from the States. Because
so for people know, it would be like White Widow, Exodus cheese, all that bullshit.
All
right?
Cannabis has always been America has always been a pot scene. From the jazz musicians, from the blues periods, it's always been vipers, hipsters. That was never the case in Europe. In Europe, they smoked tobacco and hash. No one would go to the trouble of smuggling marijuana in big bulk forms when they can press it down into a hashish that's concentrated 10 times. You know what I mean? So I listen to these guys, Chem Dog. I told you about Chem Dog. He came to one of my shows and I was giving Chem 91 and Chem Dog away for free. He said, "Who are you?" And I had to tell him, I said, "By the way, I'm the one that you bought that bag that you got the original, what you call Chem Dog in Crested Butte." Again, I'm going to tell people a lot of these strains, Sour Diesel, OGs, all these other strains, they can't. A lot of that stuff came from a seed run that was done during the 70s and 80s out of Hayes, Kansas, where I had a warehouse on the back road to Boulder, the biggest fucking dairy farm in Golden, and that was my warehouse. And we used to save all the seeds of everything that we ever grew, put it in a number 10 can, as many as we had, and we used to give them to farmers that we know in Hayes, Kansas, that would grow it in between the corn. And they never tempted, they never looked after it, they never separated the males, they never did anything. They let it go to seed, and they only went to collect it before the corn was cropped. So all that seed that came from the Jamaican, the Mexican, the Thai weed, whatever weeds that we were doing, selling at the long time during those periods. We collected in cans. Those seeds what came out, it was always seeded, and that intermixing of all those different strains came out to be diesel. Came out there was weed that smelled like turpentine, weed that smelled like it had been in a gasoline tank, and weed that smelled like dog shit, weed that smelled like cat piss. All these weird smells, and this was like 20 when these kids talk about, well, we're the ones that did this and we're the ones that did that. They weren't even in fucking kindergarten when that shit went down, and I couldn't sell it because it was seeded pot, man. Back in those days, you couldn't sell seeded pot. You had to have seedless pot, and it had to be. And again, I'll tell you that all the strains that we got in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s was from source country. So we got seeds and plant and hash from Afghanistan. We got hash from Pakistan. We got hash from India, hash from Nepal, weed from India, weed from Africa, weed from South America. All of that weed was grown for medical purposes. It never ever been used as a recreational drug until the jazz musicians started making that scene go down in New Orleans. Had always been considered medicine, was sold as medicine until 1940 when they made Mother Nature illegal, and they've been selling you chemical concocted copies ever since.
Hey Joe, would you talk
And then
about
again at this party, there's nobody there that had cash that was even, and they're all hash makers and had hash making companies, and nobody could touch my hash. Nobody. Because they use bags, they use nylon and sell it at wedding dress prices to process resin glands that are 25 micron catch bags. Anything more than that, it's gone. You lose it. You lose it. You lose any oils that have been released in the system. They're gone. So every time you get the hash that they make is 70 to 60% as good as it should be. So for me to walk into a room and I start bringing out my shit, they can't even touch me. They don't know what hash is. They only know what they were told hash was by the Dutch. So here the guy has tens of thousands of dollars of equipment to process and do this, and he says to me, I only do this, I only have machines that do this. Yeah, you have machines that make shit hash, dude. I mean, that was the truth. I couldn't tell him that because I had to be polite. But you have $10,000 worth of machine or $40,000 worth of machine equipment, and now you're running it through a nylon bag. How about this? How about just dry sifting the hash, just dry sifting it, and then make that into hash. And then you have the full cannabinoid profile. So they're using those bags to separate the resin glands, right, from a product and make rosin from it, right? Stupid. If you were going to make rosin, then you use either the bud, right, or you separate the resin glands and make hashish. And instead of making it into hashish, you press it into oil. But you know what? Why would you need to press it into oil if you could just smoke it and dab it as hashish? See, they've been selling you all these products and they make no common sense. You'll get a lot higher and you'll get more medical effect by just doing things naturally. So, of course, they don't want me teaching this. They don't want me telling you this. And I had one guy here, he said to me today, he said, well, what if we, some of these people, they're stuck in this system, 18.6, and they need to stretch and they need this. And I was abrupt with them because if you don't know what you're doing, you shouldn't be in the fucking business. And that's what's happening right now, is that people that all think that they know how to make hashish, they know how to grow weed, they know how to do this, they know how to do that. And then in the end, what'll get them, why they will get out of the business is because their electric bills are too high. So what you're going to do is like what when my roommate here, he said, well, then everybody will start to grow outdoors. And I said to him, I said, well, you know what? When everybody starts to grow outdoors, right, the quality of weed will be better because you have full cannabinoid profile, full spectrum marijuana.
You
So
have
you
the
guys have never had these guys have never had full spectrum marijuana. The marijuana that they've had has been the goodness of the marijuana, the taste, the flavor, the aroma, all that has been taken out. And the only thing that you're left with is THC, so you get stupid. Okay.
Hey Joe, we've talked a lot about all the terrible information, but I would you mind talking about how High Times played a part in disseminating all this misinformation to people?
Well, the part that High Times took is that Rosenthal was over there working, and he was part of he's part of that 18-6, 12 and 12. He's part of the Dutch shell. Rosenthal completely sold us out to Holland, and that's the reason. And of course, it was also prohibition. The fault always comes down to the pharmaceutical company. The pharmaceutical companies didn't want you to grow your own medicine. They still wanted to get you high, but they don't want you to get high and have any medical effect. So they're offering you pure THC and using Dutch shell labs to come up with diamonds and pearls and soft and this. Everything made from butane. Butane is addictive. It gets to it tells you, oh, it's been purged, it's been purged, it's been purged. Yeah, it's been purged where you have a minute amount of super amplified pure butane. That's what addicts you. You take a person who does dabs every day and just say, okay, no more dabs for you. He'll go through withdrawals. In fact, if you Google it, I did an article, butane causes cancer. Oh, did I catch a lot of grief on that? Everybody in the industry, oh, no, you can't have Pietri saying that, you can't have Pietri saying that. But the truth is that butane causes cancer. I wrote that paper over 10 years ago.
Can I ask what you think of butane lighters then?
Even butane lighters are
Okay.
bad for you,
Okay.
That's another thing that we shouldn't use. They try to create ways of using butane and using gasoline products as much as possible. How about this? How about banning the gasoline, dude?
Yeah.
Only for certain purposes, dude. What we need, and then basically nationalize this shit. I mean, in Norway, everybody gets checks.
I hate to interrupt you because I hate to derail you, but I wanted to ask because as somebody who's lived through the opioid epidemic in America and I've watched a lot of people lose their lives, a lot of those people started before they were doing opiates, they were using BHO heavily. And so
Yeah.
I've always wondered if there's any kind of correlation between.
Well, there is because they need to. The only thing that'll make them feel better when they're going through BHO withdrawal is to do some opiate.
I mean,
So
that's
about
what I
that.
witnessed.
From BHO they go to opiates. It's just a transition because the opiates at first make them feel better, and they don't go through the withdrawal of the butane because the butane withdrawal is nothing nice. But then they have to go through the heroin withdrawal. But yeah, listen, heroin. Everybody likes the effects of heroin. There's nothing not to like. The effects of opium. There's nothing not to like. You just don't want to be addicted to it. When you need to do it every day. I mean, see, they have all these purified forms now. They invented morphine to cure opium addiction. They invented heroin to cure morphine addiction. So they invented fentanyl to cure heroin addiction. You know, I mean, it's like the pharmaceutical companies are out of control. And now when you go to the TV, they're advertising so many different kinds of things that do so many different kinds of things. Wouldn't it be funny if we could really open up the books and find out that all the things that they're making, pain relief, uh, uh, stress relief, you know, to take away your diet kind of drugs and all this kind of stuff, were all cannabis based from the information they got when they DNA surveyed, DNA sequenced cannabis. They found like all these different terpenes and cannabinoids that have certain medical effects. So they've been separating the medical effects of cannabis while it was illegal where we couldn't grow it and we couldn't use it. They were studying that, and then it became DNA sequence. When it became DNA sequence, you know that you're having all like Sativex, that the spray that they use in London, cancer spray. You know that's $300 for a half a gram. So I mean, it's a pharmaceutical company that is really just running the world and taking advantage. And you know, who knows what they're getting, how deeply they're involved in COVID and all these other kind of, you know, make diseases, and then they got the cure and stuff. But you know what? Pfizer used to be known as Parker Davis. Lilly is still Lilly. Both of those companies made their initial fortunes from cannabis-based medicines and opium-based medicines. So, I mean, they've had power for so long. You know what I mean? They couldn't keep cannabis to be illegal because we have an endocannabinoid system. Eventually, they would fall. The facts would come out that cannabis cures cancer, or that cannabis cures headaches, or that cannabis cures pain, or that cannabis cures cancer or PTSD, or that cannabis can give you energy, or can give you appetite suppressant, or that cannabis can, you know, there's just a list of stuff that cannabis can do, right? From the Bhagavad Gita, Ayurvedic medicine from 6,000 years ago from India and from China in the 19th century, 1840s or something. This guy Dr. James, he went to India, studied pharmacopoeia in India, and went back to England and created cannabis indica tincture, one of the most important tinctures ever, the first tincture that was made by the pharmaceutical company in Europe, and sold like very important medicine during the Civil War. In fact, I have a Civil War bottle that, if you can get it off my Facebook page and put it on some of these sites,
And that's
it's from 1858.
I can't seem to find it. If you would send me that, that would be great.
Yeah, and you can just see it. And so from then, when you start looking back at Chinese pharmacopoeia, Indian pharmacopoeia, and you start looking at the medicinal plants that were grown in Africa and that whole trade prior to 1940, right? You see that all they ever did is take the original recipes, make chemical concocted copies, and that's what they sell you. You know, and in fact, you know, I'm pretty soon that maybe one day they'll even have a chemical concocted pill form of cannabis. Here's a happy pill, here's a diet pill, and they're all cannabis based. That's why they put a genetic marker on cannabis, right? So that they can go after I'm dead, and probably after some time, they'll come out and say everything with the skunk #1 genetic marker belongs to us. So yeah, I mean, they have people like in Pakistan, countries like Nepal, they have the cops there doing drug war, putting people in jail, burning their crops, but not before they take the genetic samples. So they're killing the genetics in the country while they're taking them out, so that in the future they can say that they own those genetics. But for the to go back on, to go back to breeders, I listen to some of these breeders, man. All they're doing is they take in a good strain that sells good, and they take it and they breed something to it that they have that's pretty decent, and then they call it something else, and they think that they're breeding. If they ever had a republic to replicate that from scratch, they never could, because all you have is a polyhybrid. They have split up cannabis into so many genetic pools that's been mixed with so much stuff that if you ever had to have a pure strain, you can't find it. You can't find it. So I mean, when you go out, when you buy seeds from these people, they'll go, "Oh, you look for this pheno." First of all, that's wrong. There's no such thing as a phenotype. A phenotype would be if I had Angola red and I bred it in Oregon, right, and under a different ecosystem, then that Angola red replication would be an F1 because it was grown in a different ecosystem. What they're talking about is variations. You buy something like the Mac. I've never seen anything like it in my life. I'm at the Indo Expo. I have the best seeds on the block, right? And this guy Mac had lines up and down the halls, selling what he calls the Mac. But he says it's the Mac, but it's not a stable strain. So it means you can put a thousand, because he chose one strain. What he says, who knows if anything is true, that he took one strain out of like thousands of seeds of plants. He chose one, and that was Mac 1. Okay, he took a female plant. What you have is a clone only plant. You can never get the Mac unless you buy the Mac clone from them. Otherwise, you may have some Mac cross, and it may be 20%, but it ain't shit. I got stuff 19% full-bodied cannabinoid profile that is like rocket fuel, dude. It's not the high percentage; it's the fucking cannabinoid. It's a terpene profile that gets you high and makes everything. You people always complaining nowadays. Oh man, I get real high, but an hour later I'm straight as sticks. Dude, I remember in the old days we used to smoke a joint and share a joint between 6 people. We'd be high all day, dude. Even after lunch, we'd still be, doing, things do what teenagers do. But that stuff was rocket fuel, dude. I remember sometimes I used to smoke some sativas that I'd be in a dark room and I'd go blind. I had some sativas that were so damn good I could see in the dark. Remember those sativas? I remember those sativas, so a fat joint would get like a dozen people high. It was one hit wonders, but dude, that's where the word one hit wonders do. So then I'm talking to these kids, and they're all like, now they're expert, and they have no knowledge, no nothing. There was one good, really farm there. I'll think of the name of the farm in a minute, but he had some good stuff, and I traded him some books, some weed, but mostly, and everything at this farm was solventless, but solventless using bags. The guy had tens of thousands of dollars worth of equipment to process hash, and he only processed like 70% quality. It was like a big C grade quality. That was the top of, and you know what? It just made me realize that I need to go start making hash like I used to make in fucking Lebanon and Pakistan, and put my gold crown seeds stamp right on my slabs, and that's what I'm going to be doing in the future. So because people don't know and they've all learned wrong, man. And the guy says, "Well, this is what they know, and all they know, and all they know." Know this: that if you learned wrong, you're not going to make it in this industry because, first of all, nobody uses two suns to grow marijuana. If you do indoors, you're a fool. Those you're going to get eaten up by electricity, and 90% of the businesses that are going out now are because they don't know how to use photoperiodic control. They're going out, their electric bills are killing them.
Honestly, Joe, that's why I want to keep having you on, because the more we have to continue to reiterate this point, because
Oh yeah,
we're so significantly brainwashed that it's
my guy who works here with me, Jakey, he says, well, you have to, you're not getting that message across enough. Your marketing or this. My marketing nowadays is your electric bill. If you can't pay your electric bill, you're out of the business. And my system not only saves you 40% in veg or more in veg and 50% in flour in electricity, but your plants grow faster and bigger. So it's a win-win situation. It's real horticulture. When anybody tells you 18.6, they learn to grow from high times. See, high times, Dutch marketing fraud, Cervantes, Rosenthal, Mr. Nice, the whole Dutch scene, American scene, they got moved over to fucking Holland, have been promoting cannabis biology. There is no cannabis biology. There's only biology. And 12 and 1 is taught in first year biology. It's called photoperiodic control, photoperiodism. That was left out of all the grow books. Well, why people are so angry with Cervantes and burning his books and all that other stuff is because, man, he taught them how to grow in a greenhouse and add, like, if you have 1,000-square-foot greenhouse, he added another 10 1,000s, right, to augment the lights in the greenhouse so he could replicate 18.6. So he could replicate two suns outdoors to grow weed that only takes, all you got, it grows by itself outdoors, just throw the seeds in a fertile place. And he calls himself a horticulturalist. All he did was make everybody stand out like the Statue of Liberty. All they needed to keep the plants in veg was a light on in the middle of the night for an hour, and the plants would have stayed in veg. And that would, how much he, so that's the reason pot's been so expensive. They complain, oh, pot's not 4,000 a pound, it's only 500 pounds. Oh, shit, man. Look at all the techniques you've been using to bring the price of marijuana up high. It's a weed, dude. It grows wild. You don't have to do anything. You just throw some seeds on, out the window. The next day you got plants, dude.
well,
It's a weed.
part of big pharma's like plan though is to make it inaccessible unless you can get it from them, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they want the only cannabis to be available in the dispensaries at a high price, because
No, well, they won't be able to do that. They'll have to bring the price down. The problem is the market is in flux. The only ones that are making money right now are dispensaries. And I spoke to my big guy today, big farmer today, and he said that he was getting, he sold what he had left off from last year for 1,000 a pound wholesale. Now, this guy has one of the best farms in Oakland, in Oklahoma. There's some people that have farms, they can't get rid of this stuff for 500 a pound. They can't get rid of it. The everything is flat, flash frozen, fresh frozen. They they get so much stuff frozen stuff here they can't move, and now it's already the next season. People they try to hold out for their price. And I told somebody yesterday, I said, you know what? You've got this. I said, man, whoever comes in here and offers you 5-6, low balls you 500-600, better a bird in hand than two birds in the bush. Sell it. He said, no, I'm going to hold out. I'm going to hold out. I'm going to hold down. He's going to hold down next year. He's still going to be sitting on that shit.
this creates an opportunity, like you were already discussing, for sativas, because the first time one of these people experiences the sativa, they'll continue to buy that over and over.
Oh yeah, and the idea that oh my 12-in-1 hasn't caught on. It's caught on to the point where it's mainstream enough where it has a its own when you put on Apollo timers, they have a 12-in-1 schedule there. So somebody must be doing it, right? But there's not a million likes there. Who knows how many millions of people are using 12-in-1 now. And now the best advertisement is your electric bill, dude. The electric bill is killing people nowadays more than ever. It killed everybody in Oregon. Now here in Oklahoma, it's still just starting to. People won't accept it. They've never done anything other than 18.6 and 12-in-12. So, and they were successful because, man, if it cost you $1,000 a pound to grow it, it didn't matter when you could sell it for $4. Now, when it costs you $1,000 a pound, you can only grow it for 500. It costs you $1,000 a pound to grow it, and you can only get 500. How long can you stay in business?
Well, and the electricity is only going to be more volatile as climate change progresses. People
Oh
can try
yeah,
to ignore that if they want to, but it's coming regardless.
there's nothing that they can do, and all these people that are hard boiled, eventually they'll be out of business because if they don't change with the wind, and basically it's like dealing with idiots. They don't want to change, right? But even though it forces they can't sell their shit, right? Even though you point out to the fact that 18.6, if they try to replicate it outdoors, it would take 2 suns. Because none of these people who think that they're cannabis farmers, who read books like cannabis biology or read Ed Rosenthal, all this other stuff, they all learned wrong. And you try to tell them, and you try to tell them, as least hurtful as possible because they all think they're great, right? It's like, so it's sort of a sticky wicket because I walk in there and I'm in a whole house full of hash dealers and I'm a hash makers and I'm the only hash maker in the place. Nobody.
At a certain point, though, I've learned to just save my breath because they
Yeah, you have to.
they can't
Yeah,
be convinced regardless. And if it's like you can only try to help someone so much before you realize you're wasting your energy.
yeah,
They're so deeply compartmentalized from things like high times, strain
yeah,
hunters, George Cervantes. All of these outlets of misinformation have so deeply compartmentalized them that they don't. It's like Stockholm syndrome or something.
yeah. They don't realize they've been brainwashed. But when they're not making money selling, remember when we used to make money selling weed? Well, you don't make money selling weed now because you never knew how to really grow it, and you never bothered to fucking really learn. So you have like 90% of the people out there that are fucking totally brainwashed. Well, not it's less than 90% now, I'm sure, but that are totally brainwashed. You have people like French Cannoli coming in like he's a fucking movie star, and he didn't teach any correct method. He couldn't teach you the sieving technique and the pressing and sieving technique. One, maybe he didn't even know it, never really experienced it, or two, he didn't tell it to you because he's there to sell bags along with his equipment, and they'll have these round balls they call temple balls, and they're shiny. All you have to do that is take like a little bit of hemp oil, just a little bit, and just take your ball and just shine it with that little bit of hemp oil. You make that exact shiny fucking piece. It's all Hollywood. Frenchie Cannoli, that was Hollywood. That's not hash making technique, you know.
People are
The
really
book,
committed to that persona for sure. I mean, you
he
know,
came here and ripped everybody off.
it's a shame.
You know, he ripped off everybody's information off, and then he sold you products that were useless. So I mean, you know, you have Ed Rosenthal going around doing these imperious shows. He's the biggest fraudster that ever lived. You know, when the lawsuit between him and High Times, High Times had to pay him to go away. You know, so
Talk
I
to
mean,
us a little bit about that. And also, if you don't mind, would you tell us the story about the Scrogue guy in High Times too?
which Grow guy?
Well, I thought you said there's a story about the
Oh,
Scrogue.
there's the guy who created the Scrog method of growing indoors. You know, lollipopping and frogging and scrog netting. You know, it was a guy from Florida. He was an indoor grower. He was a good grower. He created this technique for indoor growing, spreading out the plants, scrog technique. It really was an efficient way of growing. And so he wrote a book about it, and he did a video about it, and he was selling the book and the video himself, and then he sold the rights to High Times to sell the book and the video on in High Times. Well, he found that High Times through Ed Rosenthal was selling those videos were being sold out the back door. So if he was getting paid for a certain amount of videos, and then they actually sold more videos that he didn't know about because those went out the back door. So he sued High Times. It took him years to finally win the lawsuit, and they paid him about 70-80% of what was due, and then they said, "Oh, if you want any more money, chase it." The poor guy was a good guy, created a technique that's being used around the world even to this day. And he was living in a car with his family because the lawyers were costing him so much money. You know, so in the end, who even knows how much money he got out of it? But you know, when he did a Donald Trump where he pays you like 70%, 80% of your bill, and then tells you to chase the rest, get the rest. Then who has the lawyers to fight? He's got a whole building full of lawyers. How can you fight a guy with a building full of lawyers? Trump never paid anybody, but you know that's how they treated him. So, well, if you want the rest of your money, hire a lawyer. Who wants to hire lawyers after 5 years of lawyers, 6 years of lawyers in a lawsuit? You know, which was a cut and dry lawsuit. He won, but they did every delaying tactic. I mean, the guy who owns High Times is a lawyer. So, yeah. And having these guys talk about some guy, Matt Loud. I met him once. He gave me some seeds, you know, and I didn't. I said, I told him. He got offended. I gave the seeds back to him. I said, well, look, here's your seeds, but I'm really not interested. I'm not into hybrid seeds. And I do my own thing, you know. I really, you know, if you give them to me, I'm not even ever going to use them. The only thing I'll do is give them to somebody. So here's your seeds. He said, and he got offended that I wouldn't smoke his seed. That I didn't want his seeds. Fuck, man, I don't want a poly hybrid seeds. What the fuck, man? I want
It
F1.
probably contains the skunk one genetic marker.
I want first generation high from landrace. I want to create my own stuff. I don't want to be in that gene pool, you know. And you know, so that when you buy those seeds, you got to go on you got to look through all the variants and see which one which one you want. When you buy a seed from my bank, you know. there's only a few variations. There's either land race, so you have the F1 first generation, and then I have hybrids. The hybrids are like you only get 3 or 4 variations. It's not like you put the seeds out, you got like 100 different things. That's not how it is. You can trace my stuff all the way back. I want the original medical strain. People forget. Prior to 1940, all marijuana was medical. It was grown for medical purposes. So yeah, you have all these people trying to be to make themselves self-important. You have this guy Matt Loud. He's like what, in his 30s. And when most of the seeds that he's talking about were strains that he's talking about that went on to become the strains that he knows about decades later. And we're talking about stuff that was created in the 70s.
Were you talking about Matt Riot?
Matt Riot, yeah.
Okay.
That cat. That's like as I taught, what the hell does he know about genetics?
He claims to know a lot, and I've listened to him talk a few times, and it's just like he's just like a rabbit chasing its tail, a dog chasing its tail. He doesn't really have thorough information. It sounds like he just read it online and regurgitated it.
That's how it is. That's how people do. I had some guy call me up, and he was starting a seed bank, and I said I started talking. I said, what do you know about seeds? He said, well, this is the first time, and I said, well, then how can you start a seed bank, man? I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm still learning. What do you have to offer? And I crushed his ego so much that I sort of he forgot about going into the business of it, and I hope I didn't put him into a big depression. But people, it'd be nice to get into the genetics business, but you have to have genetics. You have to know where to get them, how to get them, who to get them from. The genetic situation. The Dutch have fucked a lot of people up. It's funny. There'll come a day where they will pull out their genetic marker. You know what I mean? They will. It's just a matter of time.
Well, I was just watching a Strain Hunters episode where they go to South Africa, and someone had sent me this because a lot of people are just sending me stuff that corroborates what you're saying. But in the video, they go to South Africa where land races were just a few years before, and it was just all Exodus cheese.
Yeah.
And it was devastating because the farmers didn't realize, they had been given this stuff, and all of a sudden now there weren't very many land races left because it was all taken over by White Widow and Exodus cheese and Sunset sherbet and stuff like that.
So yeah, now you can't find the original stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned that, and then I'm watching this, and it's like, oh wow, that's true. And so it makes you wonder if
yeah, they did. Oh, that's that Strain Hunters thing. Not only did he rip everybody off, as far as rip all the countries off of their land races, at the same time he infected their races with skunk number 1, where they had that genetic marker, right? And basically people don't want to go to Africa to smoke white widow. And so it was a rip-off scene from the very beginning, and then they made money on the movie, on the documentary. And so they made money everywhere, every which way but loose. And the only thing that the Africans got were feminized Exodus cheese seeds
and some greenhouse T-shirts.
Yeah, and greenhouse T-shirts.
Yeah, and this is more than just losing their strains. This is taking away the farmers' livelihoods.
Oh, they're taking away the genetics of the country. Those plants were grown here medically. They were grown medically. Those are medical plants. But the last 2 generations, the only way they could survive was to grow marijuana. So a lot of people were growing it indoors. But when they taught you how to grow it indoors, they burdened everybody by giving them a light schedule that they were the only ones that were going to be guaranteed to make money because they weren't doing anything illegal. They were just selling you nutrients, lights. So what if they broke your nutrients down? When you go buy tomato food, do you buy 12 different bags of stuff to put in your for your tomato food? No, you buy a box of tomato food. You know, and people come to me all the time and say about nutrients. I said, you know what? Throw all your nutrients, put them in the closet, and just buy a bag of tomato food and use that. See what happens. And they come back, wow, shit's just as good. I think it's better. Okay. What about your nutrients? You don't like them anymore, do you? You know, you've got to have that kind of proof with people nowadays because they're all, and then they tell you, oh, if you do this and do this, you get to name your own strain. You know, you're not getting to name your own. You'll never know what that strain really is. It's a mixture of 18 different things. So you give it another name. You know, you have so many OGs nowadays that it's like, you know, so that adds further confusion. You know, further confusion. You'll see when you look at my stuff, it tells you exactly where it comes from. Now this is Nigerian. It's Nigerian hash plant. It's Nigerian OG. It's Nigerian Yoruba OG, which means I mixed it with I use OG, my own OG, to mix with the Africans and the South Americans because they give a bigger bud structure. Like it did in Malawi. In Malawi, I went from a 2 or 3 ounce plant to a 4 pounder. You just mixing it with my OG. What?
Do you think that your OG allows the land races to still shine through while just improving the bud structure? Is that why you?
Oh yeah, it's beautiful. And I improved the bud structure, and then I crossed the genetics from the OG. I had 2% THCV on my Malawi OG.
So you the effect still shines through.
Yeah, it still shines through. I'll have some results soon on some new THCV plants in the next couple of months.
Well, I encourage everybody to buy some seeds from you because I know you need some help getting your greenhouse going. And I think that, you know, this is, like you said, this
Well,
is
if they want to call me, I'll talk to them about it. I mean, hold on, let me see if I got here's a menu. I'll go through it again. I have a blue dragon line. It's from the Kumbum Valley. It's Tamil Nadu. It's an ancient Hindu strain medicine. Basically, it's always sold around the temple. So it's the same weed if you get it in Tamil Nadu or Kerala. If you get the Orissa Gold, it's from that same lineage. It's basically triple stacks. It's trichome. So when you look at it under and it's finished, it's almost completely white with crystals. A triple stack, so it gets trichomes on top of trichomes on top of trichomes. It's very sticky, very hash producing. It's purple resin, so you make purple hash with it. If you put it in a indoor and you put it under 70 degrees, you put it like 67 degrees temperature, it turns solid purple black. And I mixed that strain, which has tested out at 26% cannabinoid profile. This is really strong sativa. I bred that to everything a lot of the stuff that I carry on my menu. I bred it to lemon to my lemon Kush. I bred it to my Burmese Maui Durban. I bred it to my Panama strains, my blue Panama, my blue Panama red. I bred my blue to blazing and 5-0, which is 2 types of Hawaiian. Like the blazing and the 5-0 and the Panama and the Burmese Maui Durban, the Burmese Maui. Those are all pre-1972 genetics. Okay, so you have blue Aztec is basically more central American strains. Pre-1972. I got blue Acapulco Gold. Oh, blue Nigerian. The blue Nigerian is a my blue dragon, my kumum, and my Nigerian hash plant. That's an F1. Then I have blue Aztec, which is a hybrid, and it has South American genetics. And then I got blue Burmese Maui, which is blue Burmese, and then a Maui 50, a Hawaii 50. Then I have blue Acapulco Gold. That's all pre-1972. Blue Mayan, again, some Mexican strains, pre-1972. Blue Durban F1, which is Blue Dragon and Durban Poison. Blue Elephants, which is my blue with Purple Urkel and Blackberry Kush. Blue Michoacan. The blue Michoacan is blue with my Michoacan. It's mold and mildew resistant. Blue Ghost Poison, blue Black Maui pre-1972, blue Malawi OG, blue Arista Gold, that's F1, blue Burmese Kona, again pre-72 genetics, blue Kona / Durban, blue Black Congo Durban Poison. That's an interesting cross. You have the Indian strain, the Black Congolese, and Durban Poison. And you have blue Red Congo, and you have blue Zulu Gold, and you have blue Bongi Haze, and blue Joe's Haze. Blue Joe's Haze is I had a beautiful purple plant, and I didn't tag it, so I didn't know what it was exactly, but it was a beautiful plant, great looking plant. So I bred that against my blue dragon because that's also a purple plant. So the blue Joe's Haze is a really blue beauty, buddy, blue beauty. And the Bongi Haze is that Bongi Haze from 30 years ago with my blue. So that's the line right there. You have landrace genetics, and then you have pre-1972 genetics like Panama Red, Acapulco Gold, Colombian Red. It's all in here. So if you want to get some of these strains that are 3 different 72 strains with my blue, then you go into a variant hunt, not a pheno hunt, not a pheno. These are variants. They're variations of the mixture. And so you get some variations in here that'll be out of this world. It'll bring you back to 1960. I'll tell you. But this is a really good. This collection is really nice. I have one in there that's called a Blue Boricua. That's an Afghani Indica and my Blue Dragon, and that's an F1 hybrid, and that is off the hook. Off the hook. All this stuff is 20 plus. Some of it's 30. You know, the Panama Red plant is a strain I traced all the way back to India, Africa, and then to South America. It's a huge Christmas tree type of plant. Huge, huge. Little buds, but a lot of them. Real deep red. When you see these plants that are special, one of the things that you look for is if the stem is red. If you have a plant that the stem is red, that is a good sign. Like all the Malawis that I brought back for breeding, they were red stemmed. I was in a field, and the field was basically mostly green, but then I saw ones that the stems were purple. Those are the ones that I went for.
What is it about that makes it special to you?
It's just a more attractive plant, and plus of the color.
So I was doing some reading about the Orissa. That one, from what I was reading, has a lot of like incense notes, right? And
As a what?
Like incense, like Nag Champa, or like a hashiness to it. Is that true?
Well, it has a resinous smell, but I don't think it smells like Nag Champong. I that's the only incense I use, by the way.
Yeah, I love the smell of that. I've been looking for like a woody and hashy and spicy smells, so I can't wait to try that.
Yeah.
And then,
That Orissa Gold was originally Corella Gold. You know what I mean? But as it went north, it goes into a different ecosystem, so it grows differently, and maybe growing at a different altitude too. The ones that like the Corella Gold was grown at sea level. My was grown in the hill stations in Tamil Nadu, so that's a more mountain, hillier type of current terrain. The weed takes the ecosystem of where it came from to the new. It changes over in a new ecosystem. So from south to north is a different change for sure.
well, I can't think of a single strain of yours that sounds bad, and I really just encourage everyone, especially people who are wanting to try their own breeding or things like that. I don't think you're
Yeah,
gonna,
dude.
you
And
know,
when you breed with my stuff, you know what you're breeding with. When you're breeding with someone else's stuff, you don't know what you're breeding with, except what he named it. But what is it? You know what I mean? So mine, you know that their genetics came from South America, or they came from Africa, or they came from India. You know, there's no hidden secret there.
and you're gonna get diversity of effects as well, which is what, I think is majorly lacking in this market.
Well, you know, it's like everybody, you know, it's funny. I go to a party and I'm going to a party and the guy is a big hashish producer and he don't know how to make hash.
By
It's
the way,
very
what strains were they smoking?
whatever strains. And then I said I asked him what nutrients he was using, and he was using like the some nutrients I really didn't even know of. They weren't geared to cannabis. They were just commercial grade, very very inexpensive.
And so their hash you said was B or C quality.
The hash was C grade. Was never could never be more than C. Top mid C, you know, a C. It could never be B. It can never be A. It's C. The most important cannabinoids and terpenes in that weed was kept out because High Times told you don't forget about the small terpenes. Go after the big heads and make sure they're 30% amber. 30% amber, you've degraded your stuff 30%. What kind of information are you giving? Are you giving people? High Times. High Times is under different management now. Thank goodness.
It still doesn't help that they've damaged people permanently.
Yeah,
Not the new people, obviously, but what.
you have 2 decades of people that don't. You have 3 decades of people that know. 2 generations of people that don't know what they're doing, and they consider themselves experts.
It's because of High Times that certain people became like cannabis celebrities.
The
Yeah.
cannabis celebrities, and they weren't shit. I mean, you know, I tell you, I was never impressed with Cheech and Chong, and the reason I wasn't impressed with them is because they portrayed stoners as stupid. And I didn't like that portrayal because throughout history, stoners were always intellectuals, musicians, writers, poets, doctors. You know what I mean? It was an intellectual drug. But once the stoners came in, they started growing stupid weed. They started getting stupefied. It wasn't that intellectual aspect of marijuana wasn't in the prescription anymore. So it's different, you know.
Do you think that that was by design? Like maybe Hollywood
Well,
was teaming up with the government to sort of create this image?
well, look, cannabis is the most important medicine of all time. It cures hundreds and hundreds of things it can cure. You know, They want you. They want to get you high. They want you to forget about the cure. The cure they want you to buy from them. The cannabis-based cures, that are made out of CBN, CBD, or whatever all the cannabis profiles are. They want you to buy that. They don't want you to know about anything else with the THC to get you fucked up. And please buy these diet pills. Please buy these. This pill will give you the munchies. This pill will kill your pain. But it's all cannabis-based medicine, and that's what they did. They separated when they DNA sequenced. They separated the medicine from the cannabis, and so now you don't get full-bodied cannabis. You don't get a complete full cannabinoid expression. You only get THC, and they've only been breeding towards THC. It's funny that you put one of my African ones that's about 19%, 17% THC, smoke a joint, and you smoke a joint of his stuff, and mine will give you more energy and will get you higher than the stuff that he's selling at 25% or 30%. And the only way that you can do that is by expressing. My friend said here, he says, how are you going to teach everybody about what the difference is and what's that? We're going to have to, when it comes to weed, everybody here has to be retaught, growing, making,
12 and 1 is the way. 12 is the one. 12 and 1 is putting the foot in the door and opening up their eyes.
Oh, yeah. But people should take advantage of my the dripstone nutrients. It's the finest products, ingredients in the world, gotten from source countries around the globe, made in an ionic form, completely natural. It's one part. In flowering, you can boost it up at flowering. There's something that you can do to it flowering, but usually it's basically a one-part formula, and you just use it throughout your grow. It costs you about 5 cents a gallon, and it's dynamite. It acts like cannabis blood. It goes right into the cannabis bloodstream. So when you go to growlikejoe.com, they'll say growing tips, books. It's still not completely done, but go to nutrients. We go to nutrients. You'll see dripstone, and you press either. Are you a hobbyist? Or are you a commercial buyer? You have to buy a lot to be a commercial buyer. But if you're a hobbyist, you're growing at home. You press that button. It'll take you right there, and it'll show you how it's made, how it grows, how it works, everything, how beautiful it is. It's a great product. I use it myself. And at the end, you can order right from that company as if it was me, because I'm part of that company, and I'm an affiliate of Dripstone. So every order that you go through my website goes to me, and you'll always be able to call here and call up if you have any information. I prefer to work with advanced students than to work with someone that just started to grow yesterday. It's sort of difficult to go down to that level. I'm looking for the advanced students, the advanced growers. My resume, my motto is to grow like fire at the lowest common denominator. And the flower industry can produce the top quality bud for 168 a pound. That's your competition, because if it's costing you 168 to grow it, you can afford to sell it for 500 to the dispensaries. You have room there. You're still 3 times your money at that price.
At the end of the day, we need the small farmers, or otherwise corporations are completely swallow everything up.
The small farmers will always have craft medicine.
Unless they can't compete and they get driven out of the market,
When they say craft medicine, craft doesn't mean because you're growing 18.6, your shit's going to be better. No, your shit's going to be worse because you're stressing your plant out. Giving more light does not make your plant grow better or grow better. The plants, first of all, grow at night. So you got to give them more night than day to get them to really, really, really grow the well. You know what I mean? 6 hours of light is enough for any strain as far as flower goes.
Well, I'll say this for everybody listening. I was a skeptic, and for a while, as Joe was explaining his light schedule, I didn't really understand what he meant. Now that I'm about 6 weeks into this, I would never, ever, ever run a different light schedule. It doesn't make any sense. There's no logic.
Have you gotten an electric bill yet?
I will be getting. I actually, I have. My wife didn't bring it up, so I'm sure it must have been cheaper. To be honest with you,
Yeah.
so I haven't actually looked at that, but I do know that my plants are just happy constantly. They can be completely bone dry and they're still praying.
Yeah.
So I mean that's and I see reviews because I'm running that IG page. I'm seeing reviews from complete strangers who have
Yeah.
somehow come across the page or somehow come across your Facebook grow page or on this podcast. They've heard about the light schedule and they're singing the praises of 12 and
Oh
1.
yeah.
It's saving them so much money and time and effort and water and resources. It's mind-boggling for the
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
who try to discredit it.
It's what it is. It's direct aid to old growers.
Well, and it's just like you've never seen your plants perform until you've seen them under this light schedule.
But a lot of people, they're a lot of people, they're stuck unless they start thinking out of the box. They're not going to be in the industry, and the electric bills are going to kill them, and they have been killing them when the bottom fell out of the market. That was it. Now it's cutting the men from the boys. If you don't know how to really grow, you're in the wrong field.
I
So
mean, yeah,
if
anywhere
you
you
want to grow
can
crap,
make
you
money.
want to grow the best bud at the lowest common denominator and be able to sell it at a craftsman's price. This is craft weed. This is not commercial weed.
People really need to start thinking about how to set themselves apart in this industry. Otherwise, they won't survive. So, part of that is being able to compete in an efficiency level with the light schedules and the nutrients and things like that. But a lot of that is going to come from genetics, and I really hope people take advantage of yours because that will give them an opportunity to stand out amongst all the other dispensaries. If they're offering sativas that inspire people or give people energy or actually help them medicinally, they're going to have a product that will always sell.
Not only that, the sativas that really help when you're trying to quit drugs. I know no one's ever talked about this, but when you're jonesing and stuff, and you have some high energy sativa, it gives you the energy that you're lacking. And people here they're too high. Everybody's getting the fentanyl. When you talk about opium and the heroin today, I mean heroin today and fentanyl is cheaper than a 6-pack. And is they give you enough for $5 or $10 can probably kill 10 people.
So for the people that are listening that are interested in your strain, they may be struggling with opioid addiction. What are some things that you have that you would recommend?
I would recommend the sour goo OG. It's 17% THC and a 6% CBD. It's a 25% cannabinoid profile, but it kills your pain and relaxes you. And when you come home, you smoke it, you can relax and take it easy, and it eases your muscles and the whole thing. But the great thing about it is that if you smoke too much, it puts you into a gentle sleep. And a lot of people have a hard time to sleeping, and so this helps you sleep, and as well as kill your pain. And it's not terribly strong. It's not a high TH. The CBD takes away from the effects of the THC, so it's sort of a mild high, a very powerful analgesic effect. It kills your pain, And then if you smoke too much, all it does is put you to sleep. Let me ask you a question. Do you know what the antidote for cannabis indica poisoning?
Coffee.
Coffee. That's the end. Because back in the day, they said that cannabis sativa was poisonous. Well, it was poisonous. The antidote was coffee.
I'll be
It
honest.
wasn't
The only reason I know
wasn't
that is because I
poisonous
saw it on.
poison enough to kill you. It just meant poison enough to make you stupid. You were acting drunk. So here, have some coffee.
The only reason I know that is because I saw it on your page, Joe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
You just said that the
Yeah.
other day on your page, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, people, things are beginning to open up. I mean, it's beginning because recreational in how many states now? A lot.
So for people who want your Sour Goo OG, is that one that you offer for $100 or is that on a different tier?
That's a different tier, and that's 200.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
everything I'm selling is 200 a pack. If
Okay.
you buy three different things, I give them to you for 500. So it comes out to about 175.
So for
And
people with
all
pain,
the packs are 12 packs.
yeah. For people with pain issues, though, the Sour Goo OG is what you'd recommend. What about that the Blue Elephants? Is that one too?
That's pain relief.
Yeah.
That'll knock you out.
Yeah.
That'll knock you out. No
Okay.
doubt. That's
Yeah.
a real big pain relief.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Let's. We've been on here for a while. How long
Yeah,
we
we
been
can cap it
talking?
right here, Joe.
Okay,
For
man.
everybody that's listening, though, because we're gonna end this here. Please, I'm gonna put Joe's email in the description of
And
this.
my phone has just been connected. My phone has been out for a few days because I exchanged it over from one company to another, and it took them like 3 days for me to have my phone back. But now it's on and it's working, and I'm back online. You can just call me at home, 503-398-6221, and we can talk about stuff, and I can get an order for you.
Absolutely. I hope everybody takes advantage of this, and I hope everybody gets something out of these conversations that we have because we really are taking the time to do this.
I will sell that whole collection, 25 packs, 25 different strains. That blue line for if they want people want the whole line, and instead of being 5,000, it's 4,000 plus tax plus shipping.
That's amazing. That right there is enough to set you up for life.
Yeah, that you'll have the best genetics around.
Exactly. Well, I hope you have a good night, Joe, and I appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I know we've been trying to get together, so.
Cool. You have a good day, man. You have a good night, a good week. See you
Okay.
soon. See you soon out here.
Yep. Take care.